again. Welcome to the Memoir channel. My name is Nikki Smart, and today I'm going to be speaking with the father-daughter team, Marty and Grace. And I'm not even going to try and say their surnames because I'm going to mess it up, so I'll let them do it. But this is about their memoir, Tent for Seven. It is a camping adventure gone south, out west. So this memoir is actually done pretty damn well. It came out about a year ago. It's getting great reviews, and this team has been on so many podcasts and in all these book clubs, and I mean, they're doing really well. And I think it's because the book is so relatable. It's an easy read. It's got some pretty intense moments too. So let's go and speak to Marty and Grace and find out a little bit more. You wanna? Yes, you do. Hi, Marty. Hi, Grace. Welcome to the Memoir channel.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Good to see
Very
you.
welcome. Good to see you too. So maybe, Marty, you could start and just kind of tell us a little bit about what is this book about?
Well, simply stated, this book is about a trip that we took 30 years ago, to the day, actually. It was 30 years ago. We were out there to British Columbia, and it was kind of the climax of a series of camping trips we took, simply bringing the family together, getting them out and enjoying nature, but more importantly, enjoying each other and having a good time together. It wasn't so much camping for the sake of camping, but camping for the sake of just family unity, getting people to spend time together and play together. And we had 10 really good years of camping, never had a single problem on our camping trips. What we didn't know was all those problems were just sort of getting logged in a book someplace to be brought out on our 10th year trips to British Columbia. So the book kind of recounts a little bit of that background and all the things, some of which were kind of funny. And the book itself is generally a very humorous book.
Right.
And then it can get fairly serious, and we try to tone it down a little bit during those segments.
Yeah, and now, Grace, what was it like writing with your dad?
Actually, well, it's kind of funny because initially the book sort of came together very independently. My dad wrote down everything that happened right after the trip. And I knew he had done that, but I didn't read it at the time. I wasn't really interested. I was 14. I had other things on my mind than what my dad was doing in his spare time.
Sure.
So it's like 15 years later, I decided to read everything that he had written down. And I thought, you know, if I could rework this a bit and edit it a bit, I could, you know, turn it into a book that might appeal to the general audience. And so I spent a lot of time working on the book by myself. So it's kind of interesting because initially he wrote it, I had nothing to do with it. Then I reworked it, and he had nothing to do with that. And then at the end, we sort of came together once we had a publisher, and then the three of us worked very, very closely together to bring the finished product. But overall, though, working with him on the book, it's been really fun. I think we have a lot of, our humor is very similar, which is probably what made the book work. But there would be times where I had spent a lot of time writing something, or I had written something really funny, and then he would claim it and say that he had written it. But there were a lot of times where you would go back and read things and you really couldn't tell, like, did he write that or did I write that? Because our styles are just so similar. Yeah. So it was really fun.
Oh, good. And then I was curious if your siblings were then like, why didn't I think of doing that? Were they a little envious?
No, that's a good question. I think that only my oldest sister, I think, liked writing, and I think maybe she would be the one person who would be like, whoa, maybe why didn't I think of that? The rest of them aren't really so much into writing at all. So I don't think we're jealous.
Are they surprised that this book is doing so well?
Well,
there was varying degrees of interest in,
yes, that's true.
in the public book. There, you know, a couple of them, you know, a lot of the stuff that happened on the trip was pretty traumatic, and to the point where a couple of them just weren't excited about it being published.
Right.
And then Molly in particular was very supportive. She's helped a lot. She did early reading and a lot of editing. And Jolene, surprisingly, who's really can't really read the book, brings back too much. But she was very helpful and promoting the book.
Yeah.
And
well, I noticed that, I mean, the marketing is great. I was going to ask you, who is doing your marketing? Because I saw on your website, Grace, that you're on all these podcasts and you're at all these book events and book clubs. And I'm like, wow.
It was funny. We hired a marketing team, and I think were they with us for 6 months? I think they worked with us for 6 months.
4 to 6 months. Yeah.
And then the rest of it, we've and they did get us on a lot of the different podcasts, mostly, and got some of the early reviews for us. But a lot of it, like just in the past several months, as far as like the book clubs and the book signings, that's kind of been our effort. My degree is in public relations and community outreach and event planning, so it worked out really well because I have experience doing that, and it is something I enjoy. So it's been fun. We got a radio segment and a TV segment, and that was
brilliant.
That was me doing outreach. So
well done. Because I mean, that's one of the hardest things about the book is afterwards trying to actually get it out there. So well done, done really well.
I think a lot of authors, maybe I shouldn't speak for everybody. I think a lot of authors either prefer just writing or they're just not good at the publicity piece of it. And I mean, I obviously enjoy the writing, but I also enjoy the publicity piece. But it is, even having experience in it, it still is really difficult to get awareness for your book.
Yeah, because you're competing with a huge market.
Yeah. Grace has been very good at that. And it seems to do best almost by word of mouth, I think.
Yeah.
People read the book and tell their friends.
I mean, your reviews are fantastic. Everyone's like, I loved it. I couldn't stop reading. I was just going to read for half an hour, and then I ended up reading the entire thing. So well done.
Thank you.
And then as I said, I listened to one of the podcasts you did, and David, why am I calling you that? Marty, you said you think the whole reason that you became adventurous because of this motorcycle accident that you had. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, I will tell you, it was an interesting life experience. I was just kind of working my way through college, and just pretty low key existence. And then I had this motorcycle wreck. I was going about 50 miles an hour, and then just a car turned in front of me. There was 0 time. And next thing I know, I was skidding down the street, heading for the hospital for a few days. And it was kind of a miracle to survive a 50-mile-an-hour head-on motorcycle crash. And it dawned on me in the room, wow, that really should have been it. and I'm still here. And I'm really not even very seriously injured. I thought, that could have been it. I'd have been all over it. I haven't really done anything particularly exciting in my life. I need to start doing something. So, I think within a couple of months, I booked a trip I went over to Ireland and spent the rest of the summer in Ireland, and I hitchhiked around Europe. And when we came back a couple of years later, we took the Wild West trip, and that was all kind of do it now before the next motorcycle wreck.
See, but that's it's kind of fantastic because it just gave you this push to get out there, and I'm doing it. So
an explosion. Once that happened, it's like, once you take that first big trip, you realize I can do this. I spent the entire summer in Europe on my own, hitchhiking around, and then we spent the next summer out west, 10 weeks every place you could visit out west, and then it's like, wow,
very adventurous. And then actually, I saw, Grace, on your Instagram, you had a post about your dad saying he's had every part of his body replaced. Oh, here's to a new knee. So,
yes.
I guess that.
So much.
I was just going to say, I guess the motorcycle accident wasn't the last accident you had.
That's right.
But I mean, this adventurous, the spirit seems to be in you as well, Grace, because I mean, it sounds like you've had a really interesting life too. And I know that you worked at the White House and for the Red Cross and then for the CIA, which sounds super exciting. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, it was funny because, it wasn't until we were deep into this process where it finally occurred to me that maybe I got my adventurous spirit from my dad, because I always knew that the things that I was doing were maybe a little bit beyond the comfort of most other people. When I was 20, when I was 25, I got on a plane and flew to Korea and stayed there for a year working on a military base. And I mean, I was definitely scared, but I went and did it. And then I traveled all over Asia. And I always kind of wondered, like, where did I get this from? Why? And then it really wasn't until working with my dad on this book and hearing all of his other adventures that I was like, oh, this must come from my dad. Like, that's why I'm going all over the place and traveling and exploring.
I mean, I think it's quite lovely to have the confidence in yourself, in oneself, to do that, to just take it on and go, I feel that I can manage this.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so now I was wondering, Marty, you were going to read a little bit of the book, right? I don't know if now would maybe be a good time to read a little segment.
We actually kind of have done this once or twice, and we've looked through the book and said, what's the best little part to read? And we want to be careful because so much of what goes on in the book, we feel like it's stuff happens so much out of the blue in the book that you'll see stuff coming. We don't want to kind of ruin it for anybody.
We want to give it away, sure.
Give stuff away, not in the sense of we want to be selfish. It's like if somebody is going to read it, you don't want to know what's coming a lot.
Yeah, and you don't want to ruin the surprise for people. I get it. I understand.
What we've settled on is just the first about 3 pages. This is the opening part of the book.
Okay.
It's a little intro. It's actually from the Wild West trip that preceded our British Columbia trip, but it sort of sets the tone for the book.
Okay.
So page 1.
Okay, I'm going to put you on to speak of you. Just means that you get the whole screen. There you go.
We've got little pictures at the beginning of each chapter, and this one has a picture of a large brown bear that I actually took out the window of the car. And this is a big guy, and when you see this picture, he's like about 15 feet away. He's about 600 pounds, and he's coming right at me. But I am inside a van when I take this picture with my finger on the window, So here we go. When you're lying on the ground with your eyeballs about 4 inches above the dirt, a baby possum ambling your way would look like a voracious carnivore. Watching a 500-pound bear approach from this angle will paralyze you. I wanted to warn the others, but I was as rigid as an I-beam. I was unable to speak. Snapping branches had woken me to the sight of a lone bear illuminated by the full moon over the Sierra Nevada. He then passed within inches of my face. His stench so rank it almost pried me from my rigor mortis. I stared at the little stump of his tail as he walked away and headed for my 4 sleeping friends. He was going straight for Woody, who was sprawled out on top of the picnic table, and effortlessly flipped the table sideways and sent Woody soaring. He landed with a thud and let out a large yell that ended abruptly when he caught sight of the perpetrator. The bear slobbered and grunted about for a bit and then went for our heavy-duty 50-pound cast iron cooler. With one flick of his paw, the cooler was 30 feet down the road. One more swipe and the cooler was in the nearby creek. In no time, the bear had ripped it open and was chowing down on about $350 worth of freshly purchased groceries. And this was also 50 years ago, so that was like $1,000. So by now, everyone was wide awake, and we scrambled into the van and pursued the beast down to the creek. When we got his rump square in our headlights, we began honking and screaming and gesturing like lunatics, trying to scare him off. He looked back at us and reeled around and roared up and faced off the van, all 8 feet of him. His immense paws and claws were spread wide. Our jaws hit the floorboard. He let out a deep roar that darkened our shorts. The bear could have peeled the top off of this van and snacked down on us like sardines. So we timidly extinguished the headlights, backed the van up quietly, and back into our meek little campsite. Still watching the bear, we turned off the ignition and no one moved. And that's where the 5 of us spent the rest of the night, trying in vain to sleep while listening to the sounds of our dinner guest chowing down on his buffet. At dawn, we ventured back down to the creek to survey the damage, expecting to see the cooler in pieces. But remarkably, it was still intact and just slightly dented on one side. And likewise, the lid had been flung about 15 feet downstream, but was still quite usable, though it brandished several large, deep scratch marks across the top. Perhaps Yogi had some experience in opening up these heavy-duty coolers. Bits of plastic and containers were scattered about, but every shred of the $350 was gone. As we broke camp a little later that morning, we were annoyed by all the leaves and twigs that were sticking to our boots and our pants and everything else. Then we uncovered the reason for our nighttime visitor. Mel, one of the group, admitted to having poured honey all over the campground and underneath the picnic table in his juvenile attempt to attract a bear to our site. Well, the four of us agreed. We're not sure how to exact recompense for such a boneheaded move. We all concurred something had to be done. We considered tying Mel to a tree for the night, pouring honey all over him, and see if that would attract a bear also. We took a vote, and we did not do that. He won 3-2. And then it goes on to talk about
Wow. Yeah. See, now, if that was me, I probably wouldn't go camping again. I mean, like, that's enough. Thank you. But it didn't deter you in the slightest. Yeah.
That's the closest I've ever been to it. He was really literally 5 feet when he walked past me. I could not breathe. In fact, I was starting to yell. He was right next to me, and luckily I couldn't breathe, because I have a feeling if I would have been screaming while the bear was next to me, that would have been the end of
Right.
the motorcycle wreck, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, this putting honey just seems like a really, really, really bad idea. I'm sure. Oh, wow.
From Ohio, we had never really been around much more than squirrels and raccoons.
Yeah. Well, I must be honest. I mean, I used to take my daughter camping, and we once went somewhere, and I was too scared to sleep in the tent, and so we both slept in the car because there was too many noises, and I'm like, I don't know what's out here. So I'm a terrible camper. So I really take my hat off to both of you that you are so adventurous and can just go and do all these fearless things. But now, okay, so what is coming up next? Are you gonna do something else? Are you gonna write some more? What are we looking at here?
That is a good question. We've discussed that. Our publisher Sandra was really encouraging us to write another book that's just chronicles the Wild West trip from beginning to end. And so it kind of, my dad has kind of put together a very loose outline for that. And then I have also, in all of my travels, luckily I kept journals and I sent a ton of emails, and my mom saved my emails. So I got those back from her. And I also have like a very, very rough outline of all of my travels and working at the White House and the CIA. So I'm not sure which one of those, if either, is going to come to anything anytime in the near future.
I know, but they all sound intriguing. I mean, because you've sort of been in areas that people don't usually go to.
Yes, that is correct. North Korea. Most people don't visit North Korea.
Yeah, it's not on my list. So yeah.
Well, I mean, it's funny too, thinking back to like what you do in your 20s versus what you do in your 40s, which is very much sort of a theme in the book, I think, with the flashbacks to when Marty was in the 20s versus taking the family to the 40s. Things that I would not do, that I did in my 20s, that I would not do now. I would never go back to North Korea. I don't like, what was I thinking, you know?
Yeah, you're just more invincible when you're younger, more reckless.
You are. So true.
And then another thing I just wanted to touch on is this, you know, in your book, there's a lot of people showing up at the time when it's most necessary for them to be there. And, you know, and you were talking about sort of a divine intervention and how they just appear at the perfect moment and then they disappear again, and how this kept happening and happening and happening. And I'm wondering if maybe, you know, when you're traveling, you're sort of in a different energy, you're more open to stuff, right? So maybe you're allowing, I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Sandra brought up that Sandra Jonas was very helpful with this. She's going, you need some arcs through your book, some themes that you'd sort of take you from the beginning to the end, and you sort of grow through those. And she really pointed out, you know, that's one that we should have capitalized on a little more heavily, and kind of made a continuum out of that, which was a great idea. So, and I think it's worked because a lot of people have commented, but you know, the first time the strangers appear, of course, that's one of the main times they might have saved somebody's life on that one. And, you know, the reaction was, oh, wow, that's pretty amazing. And then it happens again, and you're kind of going, well, that's really amazing. And then it happens the third time, and you start thinking, well, maybe something's going on here. And then you, after 4 and 5 times, you finally go, well, something's happening. Somebody's watching over us.
Yeah.
And yeah, the idea of being open to those was also part of the theme, because we started out, especially me, being kind of resistant, well, hold on, we'll take care of this. And then you realize maybe these people are being sent to for a reason. And towards the end, I'm kind of going, how about next time send the angels here a little bit earlier, and let's just avoid this whole thing altogether.
Right. I don't think it works like that. Have you noticed it happening in other parts of your life since then? Since now you're aware of this theme, let's call it. Are you more aware of it? Have you noticed it elsewhere? Yeah.
It's funny. I can't really think of a time since that trip or anytime recently where I was just in desperate need of help somewhere and somebody came out of nowhere to help me. I mean, I feel like it hasn't really happened to me.
Well, just coincidence, Jolene and myself, we just revisited the scene of the crime here. Back a couple of weeks ago. Since this was our 30th anniversary, we went back to British Columbia. We visited with the Walshes, who were the main angels from the story.
Yes.
And we toured around a little bit. And we had a couple of incidences. One, but for one, we were heading back to Emerald Lake, and there was a big accident on the interstate, the one that flooded out in the book. We missed the accident by about 5 minutes, and would have spent the rest of a couple of days on the expressway in a backup because of people with some fatalities. So we just barely missed that. We went to the town of Jasper for a couple of days, and we loved walking around the little town of Jasper. A couple of days later, it's been in the news, the town of Jasper was burnt down with a forest fire.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that was very recent. Yeah.
I just missed that. And then a small little thing, but when we end up getting stuck in the Minneapolis airport down on the way home because of the meltdown with the software. And so we were 3 days.
Right. Oh my gosh.
So the very first night we were stuck in the airport, and I'll make this quick little story. We were stuck, and at midnight they announced that our third flight of the day was canceled and we were on our own. So we found a hotel, and this sounds silly, we couldn't find where the pickup place was. And the Minneapolis airport's massive. So we searched around for about a half hour. Finally, at 12:30 for the shuttle, Jolene goes, okay, I'm going to grab the next person that walks by me in the airport and ask this guy, how do we get to the where the shuttle pickup is? And the place was jammed. There's millions of people stuck in the airport. So she grabs this poor guy and says, can you show me where the pickup place is for the DoubleTree? He looks at her like, what the heck, lady? I'm sorry. He's okay. And he tries to show where it is. He goes, okay, I tell you what, I'll just take you there. So he walks around and he gets lost. And he takes us to a couple different places. He get on a bus and a train. We finally get there. And there's a lady that says, the bus just left me here all on my own. I don't know how I'm going to get to the hotel. And the guy looks at us. He goes, I'll tell you what, I will drive you to your hotel. Oh. It's like another angel out of it's a little bitty thing, but so he drives us to the hotel. And then we find out at the hotel at 1 o'clock that the bus from the shuttle never came and never made it to the airport. So
you would have been just standing there, yeah.
There all night long, and the guy was wonderful. And it turns out he had just visited Charlotte at a church from about a mile from where we live. So, long a little story, but there's angels. So sometimes you got to grab one on the way by.
I mean, it's lovely because it just gives you faith in mankind, doesn't it? It's like human kindness, and it's very, very lovely.
The guy's name is, in case he ever watches this, I can't remember his last name, but it was Carlton.
All right. So you're thinking you're maybe going to work on some more stories and have another book coming out. And would that again be a collaborative effort, or are you going to do something separately, or?
Yes.
You know what? I think I thought about that. I would still like to make it a collaborative effort, even with my book, because it's just funny. We talk so long about how we should present ourselves on the book, like Marty Ohlhaut and Grace Lai, or Grace and Marty. There was so much discussion over how do you sort of bill yourself. And so I just think, so for this one, it's 10%, Marty Ohlhaut with Grace Lai. So I think it would be really fun for my book to say Grace Lie with Marty Ohlhaut and like, you know, just keep the collaboration going. I mean, I really would want his, I mean, in all seriousness, I really would want his input. I mean, it worked, the three of us working, you know, worked so well the first time around that I really would like to do it again,
well,
you know.
I tell you what, I think it's a good marketing plan. It's a good, it's because it's different. You've got a different brand. You're a father-daughter team or a daughter-father team, whichever way around you put it. That's unusual. So it immediately like, that's interesting. So I say, yeah, stick with that. Stick together. I like it.
It was a good blend of skills. I will say that we all had sort of different expertise or specialty kind of area, and sort of recognized that, capitalized on it, and came to a pretty good way to deal with differences of opinion. It took a little while, but we finally came up with a simple little voting system. If we had a disagreement, it was 2-1.
Yep.
See, but I mean, it just sounds like your whole life has been this, well, like with the family thing, like the family dynamics and how you were trying to protect the kids and how you were like, I mean, that's so lovely because it sounds like there wasn't a huge amount of squabbling and fighting, and it sounds like everyone did pretty well together. Yes, no?
Part of the whole theme of the book was the purpose of this trip was to help us come together and be supportive. We, had a pretty large family. We were both from large families, and we had seen how much a cohesive family can just change your life and be a benefit for your life. We'd also seen where it didn't always happen. Sometimes large families, would have terrible problems. And so we tried to instill in the kids, hey, you're lucky, you got great siblings, but you have to help make that. You have to help make this synergy happen. That was part of the reason we were doing the camping trips, was to get them together, have them spend time together.
I think it's lovely.
It could go either way, but it kind of worked. And even with this trip, it was meant to be a fun little trip to bring them together. It ended up being a traumatic trip.
But there's still something about the bonding that goes on, even when there's, it's still, you're living through something together, and that pulls you closer.
Exactly.
Yes.
So let me ask you this, now that everyone's kind of grown up, are all the siblings on good terms?
Yeah, actually we are. And we all live in Charlotte now. All 5 of us are here, and we're within like a 15-minute drive, depending on which direction you go. But yeah, we are. I mean, we're not super close. I don't talk to them every day, but I mean, we at least get together once a month and have a big, whatever, birthday party or holiday celebration. But yeah, we are.
I think that's probably quite unusual. I know so many people who like, I don't really speak to my brother, and I'm having a big fight with him, and
exactly. That's what we were trying to avoid, and it's pretty.
Better
be careful.
Okay, this is good. So I'm just going to tell them, look, what you need to do is go on a camping trip with him.
Bring some bears with you and get some honey.
Bring some honey, make a little trail. Well, thank you so much for coming and chatting with me today. And I wish you the best of success. And, if you get something else going, please let me know.
Oh, we will.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you.
All right, good.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put I know, Grace, you have a website, and Marty, you have one as well, right? So I'll just put them both underneath here so people can find out more about what's going on. Yeah, will that work?
That would be great.
Actually, tomorrow is the first anniversary of the book. It came out on August 16th of last year. So we're almost exactly.
Fantastic. A year ago. All right. Well, congratulations again. And thank you again. Okay. So, all right, we're back. Just noticed this wonderful shirt that Marty is wearing. So he's going to do a little display for us. Okay, here we go.
From Grace after our 1 month. Let me turn around. It takes me a minute to turn around.
Okay.
Wait, squat down.
Yay. Fantastic. And then it's got the little bear on the front. And you put your names on the sleeve. I love it. Is that available for other people, or was that just a one-off that you made for your dad?
It's just a one-off that I put together.
It's a great idea. Well done. I love it.
Yeah, we work for our little book signings and things sometimes.
Oh, you need one too, Grace.
I know. I do.
Yeah.
I usually wear this is my camping.
Oh, I didn't even notice that, of course. You have, fantastic. I love it. So cute.
fires and
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. All right.
I just wanted to say thank you so much. You asked us questions that were original. I feel like we get so many of the same questions, but you did
Oh, good.
I was like,
Yay. Thank you. Yay. Thank you.
you know.
Well, it's nice to be able to get some good questions combined with some fresh questions.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun to talk about.
Good. Well, listen, yeah, best of luck and let me know when you get on the next one, okay? All right. Okay. Bye. Bye.
Bye.